2016 A levels question number 3. How do you record the following transactions in the balance of payment in Sri Lanka using the double entry principle? So, Lamai, remember I have told you all the easiest way when doing double entry. When doing BOP double entry, always figure out, is Sri Lanka getting money or paying money? Because 95% of whatever transaction is about getting or paying money. There can be small donations and those kind of stuff. Apart from that, everything else is about getting money and paying money. Every transaction involves money. So easiest way to figure out the double entry is, if Sri Lanka is getting money, if we are getting money, if Sri Lanka is getting money, one side of the double entry is debit financial account, debit financial account. Inside the financial account, there is what? There is something called other reserves and other investment. Okay, so other investment, or you can say other reserves. Inside this, there is something called the currency and deposit. Debit fine. You don't have to say the other reserve part also. You can just say debit financial account, currency and deposits. So this is like our cash book level in accounting. Whenever you get money, debit financial account, currency and deposit. And whenever Sri Lanka is paying money, whenever we are paying money, then what do? Then the double entry becomes credit financial account, currency and deposit. So always have that in mind. So once you figure out one side of the transaction, figuring the other side is very easy. So if this is debit, the other entry is credit. So we'll go one by one and see. Think like the way that I am thinking. First one, Chinese investor buys stock worth of 10 million at the Colombo Stock Exchange. All of you tell me, are we getting money or paying money? A Chinese investor has purchased stock from the Colombo Stock Exchange. So is Sri Lanka getting money or is Sri Lanka paying money? A Chinese investor has purchased stock and we are getting money, no? That fellow has purchased our shares. So we are getting money means debit financial account, currency and deposit. Then tell me, now you have to think of what? Now you have to think. No, you have to mention currency and deposit, right? Okay. Now you have to think, where does this go? Investor shares or stock. Where does this stock go? Think of the BOP format and see. Is it in the current account, trade account, service, primary income, secondary income, capital account, financial account? Where? Purchasing stocks. Where does purchase of shares, where does it all of go? No, only saying financial account, reserve account is not going to be complete. You have to mention currency and deposit. This is under the financial account in where? Portfolio investment. Remember, portfolio investment. What does portfolio investment have? Shares. So to figure out the other side of the double entry lemma, you should know what and what is there in the BOP, right? Otherwise, you can't do the double entry. You will know what and what accounts are there, what and what is included in each of these accounts. We went through this in the seminar also, if you were there in the last seminar. Okay. So credit financial account. Where? Credit financial account. Portfolio investment. Portfolio investment. Right. A is done. We'll get into B. Okay. Read and tell me. A Sri Lankan housemaid working in the Middle East sends 500 to her parents in Sri Lanka. Are we getting money or paying money? Sri Lanka is getting, no? Someone in the Middle East is sending money. Okay. So then debit financial account, currency and deposit. Then Lamai, yeah, you can mention the amount also, no problem. They are not going to cut marks, even if you don't, but yeah, okay. 10 million, you mention the amount, I'm not going to mention the amount in the next one. Okay. So then, where does this housemaid sending money go under, Lamai? This is what? Financial reserve account saying that is okay, but currency and deposit is a must. You can say debit financial account, other reserves, currency and deposit, but you have to mention currency and deposit. You can't remove that. So, where does this go under? Secondary income. No, remember worker remittances. So this is credit current account, where secondary current account, secondary. So you can write the amount as well. Done. Then we'll go into the next one. C. A Sri Lankan bank receives 40 million by selling bonds in the foreign financial market. Are we getting money or paying money? Sri Lankan bank receives 40 million. We are getting money. So then again, debit financial account, currency and debit. Then where does this bonds go, Lamai? We did a similar question. Bonds, sale of bonds, those are financial assets. Those go under portfolio investment, no? So credit financial account, portfolio investment. Done. Then the last one, D. Sri Lankan publishing company obtains the copyright for a best-selling book in the world for $5,000 from an American publisher to translate and sell in Sri Lanka. Are we getting money or paying money? We are obtaining a copyright to translate a book. So we are paying money. Then what has to be the double entry? Credit financial account, currency and deposit. Now think and tell me, where does copyrights go under? Where do we put these copyrights and all? I kind of did this in one of the previous questions also. Where is this? These are non-produced, non-financial assets, no? So where does copyrights go under? Capital account. So you debit which one? Your capital account. In the capital account, there are no sub accounts. You can just say debit capital account. That is how you do double entry transaction. Always think, first thing is to figure out, are we getting or paying money? If we are getting money, debit financial account, other reserves, currency and deposit. Paying money, credit financial account, other reserves or other investment, currency and deposit. Then the other side of the transaction, once you figure out one is debit, the other one is automatically credit. The other side of the transaction, you have to know where does it go on. That's how it goes. Okay, right. The only place where this becomes a little tricky is when there are donations. I'm not going into that. We would have learned that in class. Go back to your list. No rule to write the debit first and the credit. No. Yeah, most likely we will get Sri Lanka's perspective, but be very careful. Now, for example, here, how do you record these transactions in the balance of payment in Sri Lanka? Now, for example, I don't think they will change. But what if they give you, now, for example, how will you record this transaction balance of payment of, let's say, China? In China's BOP, it will be different. Chinese investor is buying stock means for him, the transaction can be a little different. So, for us, we are getting money, debit financial account. The Chinese guy in China's BOP, he's paying money. So, in their perspective, it's that. I don't think they will go to that extent to turn, but still be careful. When you're reading the question, be very careful. Usually, if they just be silent, that is Sri Lanka's perspective. But specifically, if they mention how will this be recorded in the foreign country's BOP, you have to be mindful. Okay? Right. Okay. This one is an interesting question. Draw an appropriate diagram. If one entry is wrong with the whole answer. No, these are subparts. No, each question gets 1 mark each. Okay. Draw an appropriate diagram to show the determination of the external value of the Sri Lankan rupee in terms of US dollars. Now, read this carefully and tell me, are they asking for a direct quotation or an indirect quotation? Show the determination of the exchange external value of the Sri Lankan rupee in terms of US dollar. The domestic currency in terms of a foreign currency. Show the Sri Lankan rupee in terms of this. So they are asking 1 LKR equals how much US dollar. Show it that way. Show the value of a Sri Lankan rupee in terms of dollars. So let's say 1 LKR 0.05 US dollar. What is this? They are asking for the indirect quotation. So be very careful, Lamai, when you get a quote. You have to figure out which quotation they are referring to. Now, if they say, show how the value of the dollar is determined in terms of Sri Lankan rupee. Dollar in terms of rupee. They say dollar in terms of rupee, 1 US dollar in terms of rupee, 320 LKR. If they say dollar in terms of rupee. But here they have said rupee in terms of dollars. So 1 rupee in terms of dollars, how much is it? They're asking for the indirect quotation diagram. So you can't draw both also. Huh? You have to be very careful. Right. So they are saying draw an appropriate diagram, explain why the demand curve is upward sloping and supply curve is downward sloping. So we'll see now. So we'll draw the diagram. This is how the diagram will look. We have drawn all of these diagrams in our seminar also. Over here, you have the demand for the domestic currency. Over here, you will have the supply of the domestic. So this is the, now we'll complete the diagram, okay? This is the supply of rupees, you can say LKR. This is the demand for rupees. Then over here is 1 LKR equals how much US dollar. So we'll assume 1 LKR is 0.05 US dollar. Then over here, what do you get? Over here, you get the quantity. We can give a any quantity, right? Okay, so this is the quantity of LKR exchanged in the. So this is a more complete diagram to give. Now, because they are saying to draw a diagram, so therefore you are to properly draw and label that. So you will most likely get around maybe 2 marks for that. Now they are asking, explain why the demand curve is downward sloping. Okay, so why is the demand curve? Why is the demand downward? So we'll try to think of this, Lamai. Lamai, can you tell me the demand for the Sri Lankan rupee comes from what and what? When is the Sri Lankan rupee demanded? When is the Sri Lankan rupee demanded? Sri Lankan rupee is demanded whenever we get money, no? So when do we get money? When there are exports. So you need to say Sri Lankan rupee will be demanded when there is exports and or any other inflow, no? So tourism money, worker remittances, investment, right? So plus any other foreign inflow. So whenever there is a foreign inflow into the country, the rupee will be demanded. Start off your answer like that. Then look at this, Lama. Here, see. You can say when the value of the rupee goes down, let's say 0.04. So now what has happened? When the value of the rupee goes down, this is called a depreciation. Na? See, earlier 1 rupee is worth 0.005 US dollars. Now 1 rupee is worth only 0.004 US dollars. Our currency has depreciated. So you can say, Lamai, when moving downwards, when moving downwards, what happens? Downwards, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciates. As a result, what happens? Exports become cheap. So there is more demand for the rupee, no? When the rupee is cheaper, Lamai, when the rupee is 0.00, when the dollar is 0.004 rupees, then people would love to buy our export. That's why the QD is high. Now see, let's say 1,200 there. When moving downwards, the LKR depreciates, and as a result, what happens? Right? The demand increase against the quantity demand increase because exports are and all cheap. Write that in your words. Same thing, Lamai, the opposite. Let's say when the rupee appreciates, let's say 1 rupee is $0.006. Now exports are much more cheap, expensive. So you can say when moving upwards, what happens? When you move upwards, now, right, that is when the LKR appreciates, now it's much more expensive. So therefore, what happens? The quantity demanded for the dollar will come down. That is why there is a negative relation. When the exchange rate increases, QD will come down. When the exchange rate decreases, QD will rise. Negative relation. Check. Is the indirect relationship between the value of LKR and value of LKR and not very clear what your question is. So just to summarize this again, because again, for you to understand this, you should know the basics. If you don't know the basics, this is complete three. Given that you know the basics, I'll just summarize. So we are drawing an indirect quotation diagram for no, you don't have to connect with the law of demand here, not needed, right? You can draw the indirect quotation diagram, that is the demand and supply of the rupee, and you can show, look here, initially let's say $1 is 0.005 rupees. So when the rupee depreciates, when the rupee becomes 0.004, when the dollar becomes 0.004 rupees, that means now exports are cheaper, no? So now more and more people will buy our exports. So therefore QD for dollars increase. Same way, when the rupee appreciates, let's say becomes 0.006, then what happens? Then it's more expensive. Then people don't demand for our exports. As a result, now the demand for the LKR will come down. That's how it goes. Negative relation. Same thing, Lamai, on the supply angle. On the supply angle, you can say, now why is the supply curve, why is the supply upward sloping? Think this is more easier to remember, Lamai. Supply curve, here see, when the rupee depreciates. Okay, tell me, when is the Sri Lankan rupee supplied? When we have to do what and what? Sri Lankan rupee is supplied when Sri Lanka has to do what and what? When Sri Lanka has to import, no, mainly import plus any other outflows whenever we have to pay. So plus any other outflow. So here see, look at this. When the LKR appreciates, or in other words, you're moving downwards, right? Moving downwards. Now what happens, Lama? When the sorry, LKR depreciates, depreciates only moving downwards. Yeah, so when the LKR depreciates, let's say $1 was 0.005 rupees, now it became $1 0.004 rupees. So what has happened? Sorry, 1 rupee is only $0.004. So rupee has depreciated. You're moving down. So when the rupee depreciates, now imports become expensive. Now we have learned when the rupee depreciates, imports become expensive. So when imports become expensive, you buy less import. Is when this is 0.004, only this much of dollars is only this much of rupees is supplied, because you are not you're not supplying rupees because it's expensive. On the same end, when the rupee appreciates, let's say it goes to 0.006, now it's cheaper to import. So therefore now here supply of rupees at a high level. That's what you have to write now. When the rupee depreciates, moving downwards, it is expensive to import. Given that it is expensive to import, what happens? The supply is less. On the same side, when the LKR appreciates, when it appreciates, that is you're moving upward, then what happens? Then it's much more cheaper to import. So therefore you import more and more. Supply of the LKR increase. So this thing in your own words, Lama, you have to write. You can't memorize the answer for this, and go your logically try to understand. I'm hoping you would have done that in your theory classes. It's not a very hard question. They're simply asking you to draw the diagram and asking why is the demand curve downward sloping, why is the supply curve upward sloping. So that is the part there. Hoping that is okay. Is that fine? Yeah. Sum up there. Go back to your theory, Lama. I don't have the time to go to theory and explain why it happens and all of that, given that this is a past paper class with 3 weeks to go to your exam, 22 people. Hoping you all should be okay. Right.